In the heart of a small, quiet town nestled in the mountains, there stood an old, decrepit mansion. It had been uninhabited for decades, its dark windows staring out like hollow eyes, and its overgrown garden a tangle of thorns and twisted trees. The locals spoke of it in hushed tones, warning children to stay away and claiming it was cursed. One winter's night, a group of adventurous teenagers decided to explore the mansion, drawn by tales of strange noises and ghostly apparitions. Armed with flashlights and nervous laughter, they pushed open the rusty gate and ventured into the mansion's shadowy interior. As they crossed the threshold, a chill settled over them, colder than the biting wind outside. The air was thick with dust and the faint scent of decay. They crept through echoing hallways, their footsteps muffled by the thick carpet of fallen leaves and debris. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream pierced the silence. One of the teenagers, a girl named Sarah, had stumbled upon a hidden trapdoor in the floor. Peering down into the darkness below, she saw a labyrinthine maze of tunnels and crypts, illuminated by flickering torchlight. Against their better judgment, the group descended into the labyrinth, driven by a morbid curiosity and a growing sense of dread. The tunnels twisted and turned, leading them deeper into the bowels of the mansion, where the air grew colder and the walls seemed to close in around them. They stumbled upon crypts adorned with ancient symbols and strange markings, hinting at rituals long forgotten. The torchlight cast eerie shadows on the walls, and the air was heavy with the stench of decay and something far worse. As they pressed on, their flashlights flickered and died one by one, leaving them in darkness. Panic set in as they realized they were hopelessly lost, their screams echoing off the cold stone walls. Suddenly, they heard a haunting melody, a faint whisper of a lullaby that seemed to come from all directions at once. It grew louder and more insistent, filling their minds with terror and despair. In the flickering torchlight, they caught glimpses of figures moving in the shadows, twisted, grotesque shapes with hollow eyes and mouths frozen in silent screams. They were surrounded by the restless spirits of those who had perished within the mansion's walls, their souls trapped in eternal torment. The teenagers ran, blindly searching for an exit that seemed to elude them at every turn. But the mansion had other plans for them. One by one, they were consumed by the darkness, their anguished cries swallowed by the void. Only Sarah remained, her breath ragged and heart pounding in her chest. She stumbled upon a hidden chamber, its walls adorned with portraits of a family long forgotten. In the center of the room, she found an old music box, its delicate melody hauntingly beautiful. As she reached out to touch it, a spectral figure materialized before her, a young girl with hollow eyes and a sorrowful smile. It was Emily, the mansion's darkest secret and its most tragic victim. Emily's voice filled Sarah's mind, pleading for release from her eternal prison. She offered Sarah a choice: to join her in the mansion's endless torment or to set her free. With trembling hands, Sarah opened the music box and released Emily's spirit from its earthly chains. As the mansion trembled and began to collapse around them, Sarah fled into the night, the echoes of Emily's lullaby fading into the darkness. The old mansion crumbled into ruins, its dark secrets buried forever beneath the rubble. But Sarah would never forget the horrors she had witnessed within its walls, haunted by the memory of Emily's tragic fate and the chilling melody that still echoed in her dreams. Sarah emerged from the crumbling ruins of the mansion, her heart racing and her mind reeling from the horrors she had witnessed. The night air was cold and still, a stark contrast to the suffocating darkness of the labyrinth beneath the mansion. She stumbled through the overgrown garden, her clothes torn and hands trembling. The echoes of Emily's lullaby still lingered in her ears, a haunting melody that seemed to follow her every step. She couldn't shake the feeling that something dark and malevolent was watching her from the shadows. As Sarah reached the edge of town, she collapsed on the dew-covered grass, gasping for breath. The townspeople had gathered around her, their faces a mix of concern and curiosity. They had heard the screams and seen the flickering lights from the mansion, but none dared approach the cursed place. Questions flew at Sarah from all directions, but she could only manage to stammer out fragments of what had happened. She spoke of the labyrinth beneath the mansion, of the spirits trapped within its walls, and of Emily, a lost soul seeking redemption. Some looked at her with disbelief, dismissing her tale as the ramblings of a frightened girl. Others, however, exchanged knowing glances and whispered amongst themselves, their expressions grave. Among the crowd was an elderly man named Mr. Jenkins, the town historian and keeper of its secrets. He approached Sarah with a solemn expression, his eyes filled with a mixture of sympathy and dread. "You've encountered the mansion's curse," Mr. Jenkins said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It has claimed many lives over the years, each soul lost to its insatiable hunger." Sarah shivered, wrapping her arms around herself as she listened intently to Mr. Jenkins' words. He spoke of the mansion's dark history, a place where unspeakable rituals were once performed, and where the boundaries between the living and the dead blurred. "There are forces at work beyond our understanding," Mr. Jenkins continued, his voice tinged with sadness. "Emily's spirit has been trapped within those walls for decades, yearning for release. You have done what others could not. You have set her free." Sarah's mind raced as she processed Mr. Jenkins' words. She had unwittingly become part of a centuries-old cycle of tragedy and despair. The weight of it all threatened to overwhelm her, but she knew she couldn't turn away from what she had witnessed. As the sun began to rise over the horizon, casting a golden hue across the town, Sarah made a solemn vow. She would never forget Emily's haunting lullaby or the faces of those lost souls. She would carry their memory with her always, a reminder of the darkness that lurked in the shadows and the fragile boundary between the living and the dead. And as she looked back at the ruins of the mansion, now nothing more than a crumbling heap of stone and memories, she felt a sense of closure. Emily's spirit was finally at peace, free from the mansion's curse, and Sarah knew that she had played a part in setting things right. But deep down, she also knew that some mysteries were meant to remain buried, hidden within the depths of the earth where they could no longer harm the living. And as she walked away from the haunted mansion, leaving it behind her forever, Sarah whispered a silent prayer for those who had been lost and a hope that they had finally found peace. Months passed since Sarah's harrowing encounter with the haunted mansion. The town slowly returned to its tranquil rhythm, but whispers of Sarah's ordeal lingered like a faint echo in the wind. Some dismissed her story as a fevered imagination, while others spoke in hushed tones, mindful of the unseen forces that lurked in the shadows. Sarah, meanwhile, tried to resume a semblance of normalcy. She attended school, spent time with friends, and tried to bury the memories of that fateful night deep within her mind. Yet, the lullaby haunted her dreams, its melody woven into the fabric of her thoughts. One evening, as Sarah walked home alone from the library, she noticed a figure standing in the shadows near the town square. It was Mr. Jenkins, the elderly historian who had shared with her the secrets of the mansion. His weathered face was solemn, his eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and urgency. "Sarah," Mr. Jenkins said softly, his voice trembling slightly, "I must speak with you." Sarah hesitated for a moment, a chill running down her spine. She remembered Mr. Jenkins' warnings about the mansion's curse, about the dark forces that still lingered despite Emily's release. "What is it, Mr. Jenkins?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Jenkins motioned for her to follow him to a secluded bench in the park. They sat in silence for a few moments, the air heavy with unspoken words. "I fear that the mansion's curse is not fully broken," Mr. Jenkins finally spoke, his voice barely audible. "There are restless spirits still trapped within its walls, yearning for release." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. She had hoped that Emily's freedom would bring an end to the mansion's dark legacy, but Mr. Jenkins' words shattered that illusion. "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Mr. Jenkins sighed heavily, his gaze fixed on the ground. "Emily's spirit may be at peace, but there are others who were lost to the mansion's curse, others who still wander its halls in torment." Sarah felt a lump form in her throat. The thought of more souls trapped within the mansion's labyrinthine depths filled her with dread. "We must find a way to free them," Mr. Jenkins continued, his voice filled with determination. "But we cannot do it alone. We need your help, Sarah." Sarah stared at Mr. Jenkins, her mind racing. Despite her fear, She knew that she couldn't turn away from the plight of those lost souls. She had unwittingly become entangled in the mansion's dark legacy, and now she had a chance to make things right. "I'll help," Sarah said quietly, her voice steady despite the turmoil within her. "We have to find a way to end the curse once and for all." Mr. Jenkins nodded gratefully, his eyes reflecting a mixture of relief and sadness. "Thank you, Sarah. Together, we will uncover the secrets of the mansion and bring peace to those who have suffered for far too long." As they walked back towards town, Sarah felt a sense of purpose settle over her. The road ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty, but she knew that she couldn't ignore the call to help those who had been lost to the mansion's curse. And as she glanced back at the mansion looming on the edge of town, its dark windows staring out like hollow eyes, Sarah whispered a silent promise to never rest until every lost soul was set free from its grasp. Sarah and Mr. Jenkins delved deeper into the history of the haunted mansion, scouring old archives and speaking with elderly residents who remembered tales passed down through generations. Each story they uncovered painted a picture of tragedy and despair, of families torn apart and souls lost to the mansion's curse. They learned of a wealthy merchant who had once owned the mansion in its prime, rumored to dabble in dark arts and forbidden rituals. His insatiable thirst for power led him to conduct unspeakable experiments within the mansion's hidden chambers, using innocent townsfolk as unwilling participants in his twisted schemes. As Sarah and Mr. Jenkins pieced together fragments of the mansion's dark history, they uncovered clues that pointed towards a series of underground catacombs beneath the mansion, an intricate network of tunnels and crypts where the merchant had conducted his darkest rituals. Armed with knowledge and determination, Sarah and Mr. Jenkins embarked on a daring expedition into the depths of the mansion. They navigated through dusty corridors and hidden passageways, their progress slow and cautious as they encountered traps and obstacles left behind by the mansion's malevolent past. The air grew colder and heavier with each step, the darkness seeming to press in around them like a suffocating cloak. Yet, Sarah pressed on, driven by a fierce resolve to confront the evil that had plagued the mansion and free the souls trapped within its walls. At last, they reached a hidden chamber deep within the catacombs, a chamber adorned with ominous symbols and ancient artifacts. Torches flickered ominously on the walls, casting eerie shadows that danced across the stone floor. In the center of the chamber stood a stone altar, its surface etched with arcane runes and stained with traces of blood. Sarah's heart sank as she realized the true extent of the horrors that had unfolded within the mansion's walls. "This is where the merchant conducted his rituals," Mr. Jenkins whispered, his voice barely audible in the oppressive silence. "This is where the curse began." Sarah nodded grimly, her eyes scanning the chamber for any sign of the trapped spirits. She felt their presence all around her, a palpable sense of anguish and despair that threatened to overwhelm her senses. "We have to find a way to break the curse," Sarah said determinedly, her voice echoing in the chamber. "We can't let these souls suffer any longer." Together, Sarah and Mr. Jenkins studied the arcane symbols and artifacts, searching for a clue that would lead them to the source of the mansion's malevolent power. Hours passed in tense silence as they pieced together fragments of forgotten lore and ancient incantations. Finally, they discovered a hidden passage concealed behind a tapestry, a passage that led to a chamber deeper still within the catacombs. There, they found a pedestal adorned with a crystal orb glowing with an eerie, pulsating light. "This must be it," Mr. Jenkins murmured, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and trepidation. "The source of the mansion's curse." Sarah approached the pedestal cautiously, her hands trembling as she reached out towards the crystal orb. She could feel its power humming beneath her fingertips, a malevolent force that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. With a deep breath, Sarah summoned all of her courage and spoke the words of an ancient incantation, a plea for forgiveness and redemption, a plea to break the chains that bound the trapped souls to the mansion's dark legacy. The chamber trembled as Sarah's voice echoed through the stone walls, the crystal orb glowing brighter and brighter until it filled the chamber with blinding light. And then, with a deafening roar, the curse was shattered, dispelled by Sarah's unwavering determination and the purity of her heart. As the light faded, Sarah and Mr. Jenkins felt a profound sense of peace wash over them. The air was suddenly clear and still, free from the oppressive weight of centuries-old sorrow. "We did it," Sarah whispered, her voice filled with awe and relief. "We broke the curse." Mr. Jenkins nodded silently, his eyes shining with pride. "You have accomplished what few could ever dare to dream," he said solemnly. "You have freed the souls trapped within the mansion's grasp." Together, Sarah and Mr. Jenkins emerged from the catacombs, their hearts lightened by the knowledge that they had brought closure to a chapter of darkness and despair. The town rejoiced at the news, grateful for Sarah's bravery and the peace that had finally been restored to their once troubled community. And as Sarah looked back at the now silent mansion, its dark windows reflecting the morning sunlight, she knew that its haunted legacy had come to an end. The souls lost to its curse had found peace, and Sarah had played a vital role in their journey towards redemption. As Sarah and Mr. Jenkins emerged from the depths of the catacombs, their hearts were lightened by the sense of accomplishment and relief. The town, once shrouded in fear and whispers of the cursed mansion, now basked in the newfound peace brought by Sarah's bravery. Word of their success spread like wildfire through the community. Residents who had once avoided the mansion now gathered courage to visit its grounds during the day, marveling at the transformation that had taken place. The overgrown garden began to bloom anew, as if responding to the lifting of the mansion's dark shadow. Sarah became somewhat of a local hero, though she remained modest about her role in breaking the curse. She continued her studies at school, but her mind often wandered back to the events that had unfolded in the labyrinthine catacombs. The lullaby that had haunted her dreams gradually faded, replaced by a sense of peace, knowing that she had helped bring closure to the trapped souls. Mr. Jenkins, on the other hand, dedicated himself to preserving the history of the town and ensuring that the tale of the haunted mansion would never be forgotten. He compiled a detailed account of their journey, meticulously documenting the lore and legends that had shaped their quest. Months passed, and life in the town returned to normalcy. The mansion itself remained abandoned, its dark windows now reflecting the warmth of the sun rather than the chill of despair. Some residents even speculated about restoring the mansion, transforming it into a historical landmark that would serve as a testament to the town's resilience. One evening, as Sarah walked home from the library, she passed by the mansion. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the old stone facade. She paused, her gaze drawn to the mansion's once menacing silhouette that now seemed almost serene in the fading light. Without warning, a gentle breeze rustled through the trees, carrying with it a faint melody, a lullaby. Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she recognized the haunting tune, the same melody that had echoed through the catacombs on that fateful night. But this time, there was no fear, only a sense of gratitude and reverence. She closed her eyes and listened, feeling a presence, faint yet unmistakable, surrounding her with a feeling of peace and gratitude. As the last notes of the lullaby faded into the evening air, Sarah opened her eyes, a smile tugging at the corners of her lips. She whispered a silent thank you to the souls that had found peace, knowing that their legacy would live on in the hearts and memories of the townspeople. And as she continued on her way home, the stars twinkling above her and the town lights glowing in the distance, Sarah carried with her a newfound understanding of courage, compassion, and the enduring power of hope in the face of darkness. As Sarah walked home that evening, the echoes of the lullaby lingered in her mind, a gentle reminder of the souls she had helped to free from the mansion's curse. The town had embraced the newfound peace with a mixture of relief and gratitude, and Sarah found herself regarded with a quiet reverence wherever she went. Despite the tranquility that now enveloped the town, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the mansion's story than what they had uncovered. She often found herself drawn back to the old archives with Mr. Jenkins, poring over forgotten manuscripts and faded journals in search of any lingering secrets that might shed light on the mansion's dark past. One afternoon, while sifting through a particularly ancient tome, Sarah stumbled upon a passage that spoke of a hidden chamber deep within the mansion, a chamber rumored to contain relics of immense power and forbidden knowledge. According to the text, the chamber was sealed off centuries ago by a powerful enchantment, its entrance concealed from prying eyes. Excited yet cautious, Sarah shared her discovery with Mr. Jenkins. His eyes widened in astonishment as he read the passage, his fingers tracing the ancient runes etched into the parchment. This could be the key to understanding the true origins of the mansion's curse, Mr. Jenkins mused, his voice tinged with a mix of excitement and apprehension. But we must tread carefully. The enchantments described here are not to be taken lightly. Determined to uncover the mansion's final secrets, Sarah and Mr. Jenkins embarked on a meticulous investigation. They combed through historical records and consulted with experts in ancient languages and arcane lore, piecing together clues that led them deeper into the mansion's enigmatic history. Weeks turned into months as they deciphered cryptic clues and navigated hidden passages within the mansion's labyrinthine corridors. Each discovery brought them closer to unraveling the mystery that had plagued the mansion for centuries. Yet the deeper they delved, the more ominous the presence within the mansion seemed to become. One moonless night, Sarah and Mr. Jenkins stood before a nondescript wall in the mansion's grand library. Their research had led them to believe that behind it lay the entrance to the long-lost chamber. They had gathered an array of ancient artifacts and performed intricate rituals to weaken the enchantments that guarded the chamber's secrets. With bated breath, Sarah placed her hand upon the wall, tracing the intricate patterns that shimmered faintly in the candlelight. A surge of energy coursed through her, and with a whispered incantation, the wall began to tremble and shift, revealing a hidden doorway bathed in an eerie blue light. Heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation, Sarah exchanged a glance with Mr. Jenkins before stepping into the chamber. The air was thick with centuries-old dust, and the chamber itself was smaller than expected, with shelves lined with ancient tomes and artifacts of unknown origin. As they cautiously explored the chamber, Sarah's gaze fell upon a pedestal at the center of the room. Resting atop it was a small, ornate box adorned with intricate carvings and shimmering gemstones. It pulsed with a faint, otherworldly glow, and Sarah felt a strange pull toward it, a sense that it held the final piece of the puzzle they had been seeking. With trembling hands, Sarah lifted the lid of the box. Inside, nestled among velvet cushions, was a delicate crystal orb much like the one they had encountered in the catacombs. Its surface rippled with ethereal energy, and Sarah sensed that it held immense power, a power that had been harnessed and twisted by the mansion's former inhabitants. "This is it," Mr. Jenkins breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. "This orb must be the source of the mansion's curse." Sarah nodded, her mind racing with the implications of their discovery. They had uncovered the true origin of the curse, the artifact that had fueled the mansion's malevolent influence for generations. But as Sarah reached out to touch the crystal orb, a sudden chill swept through the chamber. The air grew thick with a sense of foreboding, and shadows seemed to dance in the corners of the room. It became clear that their presence had not gone unnoticed. Before they could react, the chamber was engulfed in darkness, and Sarah felt a cold, unseen force surround her. She heard Mr. Jenkins cry out in alarm, but his voice was quickly drowned out by an otherworldly wail, a haunting lament that echoed through the chamber and pierced Sarah's very soul. In the chaos that ensued, Sarah clutched the crystal orb tightly in her hands, its energy surging through her in a desperate bid for survival. She closed her eyes and focused, channeling every ounce of courage and determination she possessed. With a burst of light and energy, Sarah unleashed a wave of power that shattered the darkness and banished the malevolent presence from the chamber. The shadows recoiled, dissipating into nothingness, leaving Sarah and Mr. Jenkins gasping for breath in the sudden stillness. As they caught their breath, Sarah realized that the crystal orb in her hands had dimmed, its malevolent energy finally spent. The chamber was now bathed in a soft, peaceful glow, a stark contrast to the darkness that had threatened to consume them. "We did it," Mr. Jenkins murmured, his voice filled with awe and relief. "The curse is finally broken." Sarah nodded, a profound sense of accomplishment washing over her. They had uncovered the mansion's darkest secrets and put an end to its legacy of darkness and despair. The town would be safe now, forever free from the mansion's malevolent influence. As they emerged from the hidden chamber and returned to the world above, Sarah and Mr. Jenkins knew that their journey was far from over. The mansion would no longer be a place of fear and whispers, but a testament to their courage and perseverance in the face of unimaginable darkness. And as Sarah looked back at the mansion, its once menacing facade now bathed in the light of dawn, she knew that its secrets would remain a part of her forever, a reminder of the strength that lies within the human spirit and the enduring power of hope and redemption. Thus concludes the tale of Sarah's journey, marked by bravery, discovery, and the ultimate triumph over darkness.